So, if you're not a fan of Guns N' Roses, you may be annoyed by Thor, Love and Thunder. Their music isn't just featured in the trailer. Space Viking Thor enlists the help of Valkyrie, Korg, and ex-girlfriend Jane Foster to fight Gorr the God Butcher, who intends to make the gods extinct. So I'm a bit torn on this film. I really enjoyed about half of it, and then the other half, which, it's not split right down the middle, just within the runtime, I was only mildly entertained. So let me start off with everything that I really liked in this. Christian Bale as Gorr the God Butcher, I think he's awesome. He's effectively creepy and menacing, and most importantly, we understand his motivations. The film opens cold with his establishing story, spending a decent amount of time letting us see how he becomes this wickedly powerful god assassin. His makeup and aesthetics are really well done, and I appreciate how we see his appearance just subtly change as the story progresses, showing the effects that his chosen path have on him. Now, he's got some really cool powers, and he's able to create some things that are imaginative and freaky, and he has this particular method for going after Thor that I found especially dark. All the visuals with Gorr are outstanding. If you've seen the trailer or images, you know how he's almost devoid of color, where everything is desaturated in just various shades of gray. Now, this is not only explained, but it's pulled off really well. It's awesome that we have Natalie Portman returning as Jane Foster. The movie does an effective job of giving us the backstory of what happened between Thor and Jane, and why we haven't really seen her for so long. It's not dragged out, but it works. I also like the character complications Jane is experiencing, which then guide her motivations. There were one or two times with Jane that gave me mild chills, mostly because I was invested in the scene and the character, and then the outcome was emotionally engaging. I still like the dynamic between Thor and Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie. As capable and fierce warriors, they understand each other, and they have a massive respect for one another. But that also doesn't prevent some teasing and snarkiness from occurring. I'm bummed that for as much as she's in this, Valkyrie has to take a bit of a backseat in the story. Now, she does have some important moments, but she's such a charismatic character that I would have loved to have more of her. I loved the soundtrack, but if you're not a fan of GNR, then it may annoy you. Sweet Child of Mine played in the trailer, and it is featured in the film as well, but we also get a couple of others from those rockers, and I felt that they complemented the scenes extremely well. Within the story, I felt the Gorr storyline and then Jane's story arc were the most impactful and the most interesting. The dynamic between Jane and Thor, while it makes sense, didn't have the full emotional impact that I think it was meant to. Thor's journey and his arc weren't very engaging to me, and I think that comes down to the script and then the ad-libbing that takes place. In Thor Ragnarok, there was a heavy reliance on ad-libbing by the actors, and I thought it was pulled off amazingly. It was extremely funny, but also the story was very emotionally impactful. In Love and Thunder, the ad-libbing becomes more of a distraction. There were multiple times within this where it felt like the characters were workshopping their jokes, and then Taika Waititi just kept the attempts in. The majority of this also, it wasn't funny, and actually a lot of it was really cringy and then even embarrassing. I felt bad for the actors as they delivered the scenes because they were just not good. And unfortunately, the comedy angle makes up about half the movie. Like I said before, it's not split down the middle, so the first half is comedy and then the last half is drama. They're all intermingled, but when the comedy is happening, 9 times out of 10, it just wasn't connecting with me. There were moments where I chuckled, but that was about the extent of my laughter. And it's a pretty stark change from how Ragnarok hit, especially when considering most of the cast is the same, and then both are directed by Taika Waititi. Now, there's a strange arc between Thor and Stormbreaker. We know that both of his weapons react and respond to him, but here it took on a whole new level that I'm not really sure I like. There was a moment that they used in the arc to just create an amusing shot, but outside of that, the dynamic feels forced and then unnatural, especially because there's been no support for these types of actions. Now, I know that's wildly vague, it may not even make sense, but I'm trying to avoid some spoilers, so when you see the film, it certainly will make sense. This is a surprisingly short movie, especially for a current MCU movie. It's just under 2 hours long. Now, there are moments of uneven pacing, but for the majority of this, I felt it was progressing along efficiently. If anything, it may have been rushed in portions. Now, I really enjoyed the climax of the story. There was peril, but also some hugely awesome visuals and then character moments. Plus, there's a very unexpected sequence involving a bunny, and it did put a huge smile on my face. So overall, Thor, Love and Thunder is a mixed bag for me. I really loved Christian Bale as Gorr the God Butcher, as he brought danger and threat to the characters. His character is developed well, and he has an arc that drew me in and captivated me. The inclusion of Natalie Portman as Jane Foster is great, and I love seeing her in the mighty Thor role. She has a good presence on screen, and her character arc was intriguing and emotional. While I didn't enjoy the attempts at comedy and felt the story struggled to find its direction, especially when the ad-libbing became obvious, when it was focused on gore or Foster, I was engaged. This isn't even close to a terrible movie. I was entertained and I had some fun with it. I mean, is it the strongest entry in the MCU? No, but it's not the worst either. It's just one that I didn't feel like I wanted to rush right back in and watch again. Now, I'll probably wait until it hits streaming to give it a rewatch. There's a mid-credit scene that I think is really important, and then a post-credit scene that may be pointless, but I enjoyed it. There's no sex, some very brief nudity, a lot of profanity, and then a ton of violence. I give Thor: Love and Thunder 3 out of 5 couches. So how would you rank the Thor movies? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.